I had the.
Well, good evening and welcome to About the Valley. My guest tonight is Joe Mangiacotti. Joe is a fellow radio
Yep,
personality with me over at WCRN.
yep,
And Joe does a show. He works Saturday and Sunday.
yeah. It's a big lineup. I have a
The
bit.
weekend lineup is great.
Oh, well, the CRN lineup's wonderful. For
Yeah,
me, I have a company called Cameo Media,
yeah,
and we are a PR firm, but we're a boutique radio show. So we specialize in creating and then producing radio shows for businesses or causes, that kind of
yeah.
thing. So,
If
like
you
if
tune
you're,
in to CRN at 6 a.m.
yep,
on Saturday or Sunday, you're hearing Joe.
yeah. So that's the Joe Mangiacotti show, Saturday and
Yep.
Sunday mornings. Although Sunday mornings, 6 to 8, we just last month, we launched a new show called Faith in America with Reverend Peter Preble.
Yes,
So
on
6
Sunday
to
morning.
7 is Faith in America. Then I pick it up 7 to 8 Saturdays now. Now the Joe Mangiacotti show, Harry, as you know, we went on in 2006. That Saturday morning, that started as a show called Conservatively Speaking,
Yes.
and it was Mike Wade, and
Yeah.
Mike hired Cameo, myself, to. He had no background in radio whatsoever. He's not
He
a
did a
radio
good
guy.
job, though.
He did. Thank you. See, I take credit because because you heard him when he
Yeah.
became a decent talk show host.
Yeah.
And that's because I worked with him, and I created that show, produced it, and then I was on air producer. Then we co-hosted it with him, and then a couple of years ago in 2017, for health reasons, and Mike's, he's a wonderful guy. He's a healthy guy, but he had some issues, so he retired. And I continued, conservatively speaking, as the solo host. But last year, I dropped the conservatively speaking. We call it just the Joe Mangiacotti Show. You can see the logo, and the fedora is kind of the signature trademark, right, on the logo. You'll see it throughout different logos, the Cameo, the Out with Joe. And so since December of 2017, I've been solo host of the show. But it's in our 14th year on Saturday mornings. We expanded to Sunday mornings. But we also have Out with Joe, which is a dining and entertainment show,
Yes.
right? And that history goes back to 2008, and it went on as an hour show weekly on 1060 a.m. It grew to 3 hours on Sundays, 4 radio stations. And now it's a weekly vignette in a blog site, outwithjoe.com. We've got Handling Change, which I kind of recreated. This was a show that I produced and did with a financial planner years ago, and the name had retired for a while, and I brought it back. So it's Handling Change, to handle all the changes in your life, right? All the changes and challenges. So what we do on that is every week I rotate an expert or an authority, like a real estate, insurance, mortgage, elder care, that kind of thing. And we just had a great addition. Greta Bonaggi, who owns Golden Group Roofing, first female expert
I
of
heard her.
handling change. She's on the third Saturday.
Yeah.
So every week is dedicated. So the insurance person's on the second, Greta's the third, One Worcester Homes is on the fourth, and that's a 5-minute show. So a vignette is just a show within a show. So we do that, and now we also launched a couple months ago the LPDAM case files from the LPDAM, which is the Licensed Private Detectives Association of Massachusetts. So every week we do a 5-minute little mini show, and we talk about the PI industry and the cases from it. And I'm a second-generation private investigator.
Yeah, a lot of people realize you're also a licensed private investigator.
Licensed private investigator,
And,
second generation.
People have to realize if you're not licensed, you really can't do private investigating.
Absolutely, and this is part of the thing. This is part of what we talk about on LPDM case files. Is a lot of people don't realize, Harry, that they can get in trouble doing some of the things they think that they should be able to do.
Right.
Like following people
Yeah.
or digging into people. You actually need a license, and the PI license, is probably one of the toughest license. I mean, with the exception of obviously a doctor's license or a lawyer, but as far as licenses go, very tough license, because we're actually licensed by, yes, the Commonwealth, but it's the state police who does the authority, the licensing authority, and they do a deep dive investigation into us every year to renew our license. We have to be bonded and get insurance, so this is a very
And you're gonna have a
tough
good
license.
working knowledge of the law.
You have to have a decent, yes, you do, because I mean, you're basically, your client base is usually attorneys, if not
Yeah.
insurance companies. I mean, there is a small percentage of, to the public that hire you for, maybe domestic and stuff.
But you gotta know how far you can go,
Yeah, you
you
do.
know, when you do an investigation.
Absolutely, you have to, and that's a lot of times you take your cues from the attorneys, right? Because a lot of attorneys, you got to figure out what they like. Every attorney's a little different, but
Yeah.
most attorneys will say, "Look, I don't want anything in writing till I tell you," because you got to understand, if you're doing an investigation, anything you write down can be subpoenaed.
Well, it becomes state's evidence after, right?
So they can ask you, they can say, Your Honor, I want all the PI's notebooks and notes from
Yeah.
that case. And you have to turn them over. If you don't write anything down, they can't get anything.
Right.
So a lot of attorneys say, go do this, find this out, don't write anything down, tell me what you have, and I'll tell you whether to give me a report or nothing. So that's common for there. But the radio stuff, like I said, yeah, I mean, the weekend.
But you're so busy now with radio that you
yeah.
haven't been able to do the PI
Yeah,
stuff.
I personally don't. I mean, I've got some people who do, cases for, for the agency and stuff, but I personally, actually, to tell you the truth, I haven't actually been doing in the field work for a couple of years now. But the agency, began in 1986 with my dad and my mom and I, and like my father was a police sergeant detective, and he retired, and we had both worked for PI out of Sherborne.
Oh, okay.
Even while he was still on the department, and he left Sherborne, and he went on to the Middlesex County Sheriff's Department for a while, and so we started the agency in 1986, and actually, at the time, you have to be 25 years old to hold a license. So I couldn't hold a license, even though I had worked as a teenager. My after-school job, right, and when I was a senior in high school, my after-school job was, believe it or not, credit card collection. And what it was now, this is long before the internet. Al Gore hadn't invented it yet, right? So back in the day, you remember your credit card used to have these,
Yeah,
and this is
you
Teddy,
had
by the
the,
way, the machine that you'd do
yeah.
this. Well, if the clerk didn't check the book of bad credit cards, right, you could use your card for a month or two easily. So they used to send these warrants to PI agencies, and they'd go get it. So my after-school job, I'm 17 years old, I got my driver's license, I'd drive around and knock on the door.
Get their credit card.
Give me a credit card. and when they gave it to me, Harry, I'd have to cut it up in front of them, sign an affidavit, get them to sign an affidavit, and I'd go turn the card in, and I'd get so much money for that. That was my after-school job. And then I went to work for a company called Stop Loss Associates out of Framingham. And that was undercover work. That was mystery shopping, bar spotting. We did all the background and pre-employment investigations for a big jewelry chain. So that was my other job in the PI, and I worked for a few other PIs until '86 when I had gone into real estate right out of high school.
Wow.
In 1984. Right now, for those of you that remember. Reaganomics, in the early 80s, coming off the Carter administration,
Yep.
interest rates were literally 19, 20%,
Oh,
size
yeah.
21%.
I mean, if you got a 10, 15, if you got a 15, 20% loan, you thought it was a good rate.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm 18. So I graduated high school a little early. I was 17 when I graduated. So I had to wait that summer to turn 18, take the real estate exam. And I went to real estate school at night while I was a senior at high school. Took the exam that summer, passed it, went to work for Coldwell Banker Real Estate, which was back then, it was part of the Sears Financial Network
Yes.
with Dean Witter. So here I am, an 18-year-old kid going to work in real estate. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know, this is odd, right? The office is a kiosk in the Sears store in the Natick Mall. We have men's on one side and paint on the other side. And there was really no office, right? And all we had back then, like I said, the internet wasn't a thing yet. You had bulletin boards, and we had books, the MLS books, which was your
Yes.
Bible. You didn't go anywhere without that
Yeah,
book,
your
right? You wouldn't let anybody
multi-listings.
touch that book either.
Multi-listing service.
Multiple listing service. So I'm 18 years old. I go to work for Coldwell Banker in 1984, and I was in real estate when the interest rates started coming down. And when it dropped to a single digit, went under 10% to
Oh, then the market
9.875.
blew open.
It was a party, right? And
Yes.
it went nuts. So if you remember, we had this huge real estate boom in the mid 80s until the crash in 89. Nothing like 2008, but it was a serious
Right.
crash. So I'm 18 years old and I'm working here. And the thing about it is the next person in the office, Harry, was 34 years old. There was nobody even in their 20s. So 18 years old to 34 and up. So everyone else had families and kids. So I used to, and you had to have that kiosk manned when the Sears store was open. So I used to say, I'd go in at 7:38 in the morning because I wanted to get on the bulletin board to check for expired listings, new listings. And I always said, I'll take the last uptime shift, which meant 6 to 9:30 or 10 o'clock, depending on how late the store stayed open. So I was working 12 and 14 hours days, not even thinking about it. But once you started selling, so here I am, 18, 19 years old, and I'm one of the top dollar producers for Coldwell Banker in Massachusetts.
Whoa.
And the woman who hired me, I interviewed when I was 17. I was working for Sears Driving School. Yeah, Sears had a driving school. Upstairs.
Well, Sears had everything at one
You could
point.
buy a house. They used to
Yes.
send you a kit in the house.
Yes.
So yes, where'd you get your license, Sears? Yeah, you could get it at Sears.
Yeah.
And I interviewed with this woman, Bernadette, and she said, "All right, well, if you turn 18, if you pass the test, I'll give you a shot." And her boss said, "You can't do that. You can't hire an 18-year-old kid with no experience." She said, "Hey, you told me I could hire and fire who I want. I think he's a smart kid. I want to give him a shot." So a year later, that same guy had to give me an award for top producing dollar volume for Massachusetts. and we had to do 3 transactions a month to stay employed. I was averaging someone's 3 a week.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was crazy. And my thing was I got this niche, Harry, with the first-time buyers. And their problem, see, people back then, there were some brokers, and this is Framingham, Natick area, right? So Metro West.
Yeah.
Now, you got to think this is 30 years ago. This is 84, 85. And some of those brokers were a little snobby, right? They wouldn't take a listing or a buyer that wasn't $500,000 or $350,000. That's a lot of money 30 years ago, right? So I did a lot of the first-time home buyers. And you know what, Harry? You know what first-time home buyers have? Young couples getting married? Lots of friends.
Yes.
And I didn't care how much the house was for that they were buying. I treated them all the same. And so they were like, wait a minute, everybody else kind of doesn't, won't give us the time of day. We're buying a $99,000 house or condo or $120,000. We're not buying a $400,000 or $500,000 house. A lot of brokers won't waste, they could think it wasting their time.
Well,
But I would do this.
They want to do Westwood and Shelburne
And the big money, of course, in
Yeah.
that area, you're talking Sudbury, right? Wayland, Natick,
Yeah.
Wellesley. Well, Wellesley's kind of onto its own. If you're not a Wellesley broker, you're not welcomed as a broker, but that's another story. So anyway, the point is these first-time home buyers, I treated them like they were buying a $500,000 house. And guess what? They told every one of their friends, you have to use this guy. And so I'd say, sell this couple a house. I'd get 2 or 3 of their friends who would call me up, even if they weren't in the area, and said, we got to use you. So here I am, working till 9:30, 10 o'clock, and I don't know any better. I'm driving to Attleboro at 11 o'clock at night to show a condo. Who does that, right? So
that's a trip.
I think that if I had done, I went back to college online and at night over the years to get my degrees, but I think if I had gone straight from high school, Harry, into college life, in like interned and all that, that I might not have had the success early in real estate that I did, because I didn't have any of those preconceived rules. I did whatever it took.
Good experience, though.
Yeah, it was great experience.
How'd you get into radio?
Always wanted to do radio. I wanted to be on radio since I was a little kid, and I used to listen to a guy named Larry Glick
Oh, God,
on
Larry.
WBZ,
Larry
the
was phenomenal.
Glicknicks.
You get to
And-
stay up late at night then?
Well, my parents would literally be yelling up the stairs at 1 a.m, turn the radio off and go to sleep. And I'd
Because
have it
Larry
on.
was on from 11 at night
Yeah, he was on overnight.
till 5 in the morning.
Yeah. And I loved it. And I would stay up all night listening. And my parents would say, shut it off, I thought it was the greatest thing. So I ended up, so like I did the real estate thing, and then shortly after that, I went to Connecticut School of Broadcasting in the night class. And so I did that at night and finished that course. And the director, a guy named Bud Stone, he was a great guy. He did TV years ago in the western part of the state, and we actually hit it off. We had a good connection. As a matter of fact, I had returned to Connecticut School of Broadcasting as an instructor and did teaching there for a while. And he said to me, he called me and he goes, look, Joe, he goes, this is all great, what we're doing here, but you need real call letters next to your name, not just CSB, Connecticut School of Broadcasting. So there's a little station in Norfolk, Mass, and it's 1170 a.m., and it was a daytimer. Now, a daytimer in radio just means that your license lets you go on half hour before sunup and a half hour after sundown. You're off overnight. So it was WJCC in Norfolk, Mass, in the shadow of what used to be called Sullivan Stadium, now Gillette, right, down there on the line. And so he said, the program director is a graduate. Go down and see this guy, Peter. I went down on a Thursday, and I met him, and I met the owner. And they said, all right, you're going to intern, right? Because, Bud said, you got to go intern, do some stuff, get real call letters, build your resume. They said, all right, come in, you're going to work with the news lady. The news director is a female. Come in, see her tomorrow morning, be here by 5:30. She does the first newscast at 6. You'll intern. I'm excited. I'm there at 5 o'clock, right? Walk in, and the morning guy, Peter, says, you know what? You missed something yesterday. The owner fired the news girl after you left. You're the news guy. So they said, get ready. So I went on the air at 6. I never interned in radio. That was my first. That's how I got my first job.
You got the job right away.
They said, you go on at 6. So I went on at 6 o'clock, and it's the worst newscast in the history of radio. It's on a cassette tape somewhere. It was horrible. I finished the newscast after like 7 minutes, where it should have been 3.5. And the morning guy says, keep your barber's license. It was horrible. But that was my first job in radio. And I was excited. So I'm driving. Now, I don't think I didn't cash the first check. I think minimum wage in 1986 was $3.81 an hour or something.
Probably something like that. Yeah, it wasn't much.
And I saved my first paycheck. I had it framed in my office for years. So here I am going down 1986, driving to this 1,000-watt daytimer station to make $3 an hour in a brand new 1987 BMW 318i. Of course, that's from the real estate.
Because you had made money with the real estate.
So I go do the morning news from 6 to 9, and then I go to the real estate office, and that was how I got started in radio. So a little while after I was there, Harry, I'm looking at the business side, and I go, So I go to the owner. I said, how much would you charge? Because I realized you could broker airtime. I didn't realize radio worked. It was 36 years ago. I'm learning radio. I said, how much for an hour? Now, this is 36 years ago. He says, $100.
That was pretty expensive back then.
It was expensive back then. I didn't realize that was a lot of money.
Yeah,
so,
especially on a small station.
A small daytimer? That was a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I said, I'll take an hour on Saturday, and I'll do a real estate. And I turned around, I went to Jarvis Real Estate in Walpole, Mass., and I said, I want to do a real estate show, and I sold them on the concept of sponsor it. So I charged them, I think, $1.50 a week, made $50, and then I sold the advertising. So for that 1 hour real estate show, I made twice what I made as the news guy all week. And that was my first talk show in radio, was a real estate talk show, taking my real estate with radio. And so now, 30 some odd years later, I do political talk, but I've always had a niche of financial business talk. Has always been, in there. And this
one thing about getting into radio, into any kind of...
You probably should want to tell people who this is.
Yeah, this is, by the way, this is Teddy.
Teddy's kind of famous in his own. He's a little celebrity. He's been on TV. I used to be on New England Pride TV, and he'd be on the anchor desk in his tuxedo. And he's done a commercial for Clinton Savings Bank, and he's known as the dog on the radio. He's always with me, and he makes an appearance at Pet Rock and Woodstock every year, so you can meet him there. We've done it with you for a couple of years.
He'll be at. We moved the expo to Halloween.
Okay. So we'll be
in town
down here for
we'll-
that.
if we get the expo, Jeannie's still waiting for an answer from the school department, but,
Well, whenever it is,
well, it looks like Halloween.
that's good. Teddy will be there, but you can see
Teddy's special because he's a service dog.
he is a service dog, which is how he's allowed to go everywhere, literally
Yes.
everywhere with me. And so he does have his license. I know he's not in a service vest; he's in his tux, but he's got his chip. And I do have a picture. They register them, and he's got a picture ID. But so he goes to restaurants and
And I can
grocery
tell you,
stores.
I was with Joe at Pet Rock,
Yeah.
and everybody, I mean, there wasn't one person didn't fall in love with Teddy.
Oh, well, a couple of years ago, right? We had us, the station, and across we had Cantiani Insurance, who's a big
Yes.
sponsor of the show. And it was funny because we'd have Teddy at the WCRN, and then there'd be a big line, right, in a group. And then I'd take Teddy and I'd bring him over to Cantiani, and it would shift over, right?
Right.
And then Harry would be all alone in the booth, and I'd bring Teddy back over there.
Wherever Teddy is, that's where the line
Yeah.
is.
So he
they
brings it all in, but-
they fall in love with him because
So,
he is a pretty little dog.
yeah,
I mean,
he's a good-looking pup,
good looking,
and he's well-behaved, and he's a good dresser.
extremely well
Yeah,
behaved.
yeah. Except when our producer at WCRN gets him riled
Yeah,
up.
he does. Teddy doesn't like Ted.
Ted-A.
Ted-A.
Well, he loves him. His tail's wagging. But
Yeah.
from day one, when they met, Ted-A riled him up,
Yeah.
teased him, and got him going.
And they got
he
great
remembers
memories.
that. He remembers that. And so
Yeah.
he'll be like this. We'll be at the radio station on the air. He's like this. And Ted-A walks in. And he just... and the tail's wagging, and he wants to play and everything, but
Yeah.
yeah, so he's ruining for that. But otherwise, he's
Yeah.
just like this. But anyway, you're gonna ask me.
Yeah, well, anyway, yeah, getting into radio, any broadcasting, there's no money in the little station. You're going to starve to death.
Yeah,
But you've made it all the way up to the big time because
yeah,
Boston's one of the biggest markets in the country.
yeah. Boston's the 10th largest radio market, and they do keep kind of expanding the radius of it because they want to keep it in the top 10. You got to remember, Boston's a coastal city, right? So 50% of your coverage area is in the ocean.
Right.
So it's, to keep the numbers up, you got to keep moving west, which means Framingham, Natick, Marlborough. Even now, it's competing with the Worcester market. But yeah, I've been on stations in Boston, WRKO, and other Boston market stations. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people can work their entire radio career and never make it in the top 10 market.
It's a tough business.
Yeah, it's a very tough business. And
And-
don't think you're going to get rich with it.
No,
So.
no, unless you do the sales part.
Yeah, sales, right. I mean, the only time I've made really good money as an employee was when I was the vice president, general manager of stations.
Yes.
I've run a few stations. Knock on wood, every station I've taken
Then
over.
you made your money on your commissions.
Made it on the commissions and bonuses, and the
Yeah.
deals were, a base here and what you do. But usually every station I went to that position, they were in the red. They weren't making,
Yeah.
I had to put them into the black. And I have. Every station I've done that with has been the 3 stations I've gone in and taken them out of the red and put them in the black.
And people are not an easy thing. You're not selling something that's tangible when you're selling
Puff of
advertising.
air.
Yeah,
Tell a puff of air.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you get that initial sale, to get people that never been on the air
Right.
to realize that, hey, this does pay back.
It does. And the thing about it, back in the day, our competition was print media, right?
Yeah.
So somebody would drop $75 a week for that much space,
Yep.
and you'd have to convince them, say, what you can back then, what you can get for $75 a week over a 26-week contract, or you know what, split it, put $40 in paper and $40 in radio a week, and see the difference. And it is something. And that's because when you go to the pizza shop, Harry, or the local insurance agent, and they would sell them a print ad, they get the print ad. They get to cut it out and put it up on the bulletin
Right.
board, and they can hold it. Radio, you can't hold anything,
No.
right? I mean, back in those days, 30 years ago, I used to run around giving them cassette. As a matter of fact, they used to make cassettes
Yes.
that were only like 10 minutes a tape. Instead of having a half hour, 60 minutes
Right,
of tape,
you had
just
to
a
show-
little one so you could put a couple commercials on
Yes.
it. And that way they could play it for their friends, right? And now we compete.
And use it as a selling point. You
And
can say, here's
absolutely.
what it's going to sound like.
Oh, one of the best selling techniques back then was to walk into a local business and already do the commercial for them.
Yes.
You write it, you put it, and then you walk in, you play it, you bring your little cassette recorder. Now everything's digital. Now our competition is digital media. But radio and digital marketing go together so well.
Yes.
See, the terrestrial radio station will never go away. We're just streaming now. And we've all got websites and blog sites and YouTube channels. You know, Joe Mangiacotti show we're streaming on TuneIn. We're podcast online.
Yeah, I know.
We got a YouTube channel, right? I
Yeah.
stream the show, so it's not a big TV production. We literally just have a camera in the studio. I'm the only show doing it on on CRN rather. Nobody else is really doing that. But you can click on my Facebook page live and just watch it. Like I said, it's not a big. Don't expect a production. Don't even this nice. It's not even this nice. It's just a camera in the studio.
But that's what all the radio broadcast
Yeah.
shows look like.
Yeah.
It's a guy with his headset on, talking
That's it.
on a microphone.
Yeah. Well, I use the little buds because
Yeah.
I can't wear the fedora without and then you can see the logo and even the Out with Joe logo. It's the same thing. It's a profile.
The thing with radio, though, the advantage you got over the digital advertising as well as television is radio is the only thing you can hear in your car.
Yeah.
Okay, now you got satellite radio. That's a competition there.
Well, think of it this way, Harry. Last year they sold what 12.5 million cars.
Yeah,
To me, that's 12.5 million radios with wheels.
yeah,
Right? So now, and the other thing is, today a lot of people stream the live station. Even I get in my phone, my car syncs up with my phone, and I'm listening to CRN not through the 8:30 a.m. on the dial, but through the TuneIn app.
yeah.
And it's just, and a lot of people do that.
I listen to them on my Amazon
Yeah, there you go.
because it's much clearer.
Oh, and you can do that. You can say, Alexa, play WCRN, by the way.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it comes in much clearer.
It is clearer.
Plus,
and
I have solar panels on my house, and I found out that solar panels give off an RF, radio frequency.
Yep, they give off reflective energy there that is going to
Yeah.
interfere with AM signals.
Yeah, but on the internet, nice and
Nothing.
clear.
Nice and clear. Right, you drive under a bridge, you go in an area, none of that goes.
Right.
And then if you go distance, I mean, the thing with WCRN, folks, is a powerhouse. It's 50,000 watts, so the signal's all over central and eastern Mass. But say you were listening to a station that's only 5,000 watts or an FM station, which is line of sight, with the streaming, you never have an interruption.
Right.
It's crystal clear all the time. So that's fine. And that's just the carnation of the business has just gone. The radios, everybody says, "Oh, radio's gone." And the radio will never go away, folks. It will
It's actually
change
gotten
with
bigger.
the times. It's gotten bigger. All right. Radio has a 97% penetration rate. Think about that.
Yeah.
And bigger than any other medium that there is. And the average person listens to 2.8 radio stations a week, meaning three. Let's call it 3 radio stations. So 3
And-
radio
and
stations.
What's happening in radio too now is you got a lot of people, like you went to broadcasting school,
Mm-hmm.
but you're getting a lot of people now becoming radio personalities that never went to school.
All you have to do is buy a USB microphone
Yeah.
and a couple bucks a month for a podcast
Yeah.
thing, and
But
that's
you're getting more and more of that now.
Yeah.
But WCRN, you're right. There's only 3 stations that are as big as WC.
Right. BZ is 50,000 watts.
Watts.
RKO in the
Kill.
daytime.
Daytime.
They drop
50,000.
down at night.
Yep.
We stay full power. We just change our pattern at night.
Yep.
And the
So,
other part of it, folks, you got to remember what I just said earlier, right? Boston stations, their towers are in Boston or Brighton, and half that 50,000 watts goes out to the
Yeah, it's
ocean.
out to- yeah.
Our tower, CRN, is up in Worcester, Paxton area, which
Actually
means
in Leicester.
it's Leicester rather. So you got 50,000 watts going into Boston and then the ocean, and
Yep.
50,000 going to all the central Mass. So it's a huge footprint.
I picked them up in Provincetown.
Easy. Goes right
Clear as day.
across the ocean.
Clear as day,
Yeah.
WCRN.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really a power. Of course,
Yeah.
well, the station actually gets postcards and letters from people in Europe.
They do.
At night.
I got a call a few weeks ago all of a sudden, I see on my call screen, and the guy was in London,
There you go.
but he stumbled across the Facebook live feed. He was watching. He's
Yeah.
in London watching me live.
Well, that's what's happening with the internet
Yeah.
now. You're getting people from all over the country that are tuning in.
Yeah, the world.
Yeah.
All over the world. Yeah, it's fantastic. And like I said, that was great. I had a woman and her son in Poland that used to listen on the radio. I sent them conservatively speaking T-shirts.
You mentioned that.
Yeah.
I have cousins in Poland. Met with them for the first time last August.
Yeah.
They came here. They watch this show
On the net.
on the net.
Yeah, yeah. It's great. I got, last year, all of a sudden I get a phone, that comes up on the screen in Lou, and it says from, I forget the town, but anyway, he was calling from Alabama. And it turns out it was this guy, Colonel Nyman, Lou Nyman, who was, when I was a young guy, a kid, I was in the Air Force Auxiliary Cadet Program. And then later, I took a commission in the Air Force Auxiliary as a first lieutenant and left as a captain. But he was the Air Force liaison. So when I was 14, 15 and learning how to fly and getting my pilot's license then, he was real Air Force in it. So now he's been retired and he's in Alabama, and he stumbled across the show on net, somehow on, Facebook, I don't know how, and he called, and...
The more we talk to you, Joe, the more you become a Renaissance man. Really.
Thanks.
Here he is, a pilot,
Yeah, well, not current, but years
right?
ago,
But
yeah.
you were
Yeah,
a private investigator, real estate agent,
yeah.
radio
Realtor.
personality. I mean, you're into so much.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of those stuff were simultaneously. I mean, one of the reasons I was able to work in radio is because I had income from real estate.
Yeah, you
Otherwise,
you
I
could
couldn't
afford the
I
radio
could afford,
job.
right? I couldn't. But I mean, obviously, like I said, there's been times where the salary and the money you earned running radio stations or selling for radio
Yeah.
was ample. Was enough to live off of.
Right.
But, well, most of it. Now this is, it's a business, like most radio is. The day of everybody being an employee has gone down because you can run these companies, guys.
They're automated now.
They're automated. You can run many stations from one location.
Yeah.
It's the technology is crazy, right? If we want to do a remote broadcast, when I started in radio, it took 5 people. And you had to have a van and a Marty system with the telescoping antenna, an engineer in the field, an engineer back at the station, right? Oh, it was crazy.
Now you connect on the internet.
Internet. I have a little matrix. I can actually plug in 2 microphones, plug in my cell phone, clip it on my belt, and walk around, and it goes right back to the station. You can take a laptop. They have ready-made software, right? You just plug it in and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, like I do my About the Valley show. It's all recorded.
All recorded.
I'm not there on Sunday morning,
Right.
except once a month.
Yeah.
And
We cross on those mornings, right?
Right.
I'm getting ready to leave and he's coming in, yeah.
I have a small, it fits in my shirt
Digital
pocket.
recorder.
Digital recorder.
That's all you
And
need.
it is clear as a bell.
Yeah.
It's clearer than my old reel-to-reels.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great, and I have a home studio. So I've got an office and a studio, which, the mixing board and
Yep.
and I can plug in and I can do the show from home if I want. But I also will get these requests sometimes to go on to radio shows in other parts
Well,
of the country.
that's happening right now. If you watch TV, all these news people are broadcasting from
The
their home.
COVID-19, right?
Yeah, so that
We're
they-
getting a real peek into these people's homes, right?
Yeah.
I like to watch and check out the kitchen and the background and see what's what,
Right.
But so you're getting it. But look they adapted and
Yeah.
the technology and they hold their breath a little bit that the Skype holds out, because the other part of this COVID-19 thing, Harry, is all of a sudden the demand for the internet. Because now you've
Oh
got the
my
kids
God.
at home, they're gaming and they're doing distance learning. The parents are running their job, their business from home. It's a lot of demand.
We would be in trouble if we didn't have the fiber that we have today.
Fiber optics.
Fiber optics had
Game
made it
changer.
possible
Yeah.
for multiple, millions of people to be on
Yeah.
at one time.
Yeah.
But we didn't have that. You wouldn't be able to do what we're doing with the internet.
No, no, it's fantastic, and it is great. Look at, I mean, people were able to just kind of flip the switch,
Yeah.
and put a camera and a microphone in their homes, and there's still somebody in the control room bringing it all together, throwing up the graphics and all. But look at that, it's
I have
wonderful.
a planning board meeting Tuesday night on Zoom from my office. I'll be in my house, my office of my house, and on my
That's it.
laptop.
Well, that's great. So many people, and I think this is going to be, we're going to see some changes, I think, socially, right? Coming out of COVID-19. We're going to have, first of all, things like, I agree with Dr. Fauci, do away with the handshaking. I thought that should have been years
Yep.
ago. It was always creeped me out. You shake somebody's hand and it's wet or clammy. What is that about? I'm okay with doing away with the handshaking. But also, you've got so many people, Harry, who didn't use like food ordering, Grubhub or something, and they didn't shop online. Now
Yep.
they've been forced to. Well, once you've done it, you're going to
This
continue
ain't a
to
bad
do it.
deal.
Right, you're going to continue to do it. So I think you're going to see these kind. Look at the Netflix stock, right? It's gone up. They had millions of more people in the last 3-4 weeks using Netflix. Now they're concerned that when this is over, will it drop back down? I don't think I think it will drop, but I don't think it will go to pre-COVID numbers. I
No.
think because once people got used to it, you don't want to give it up. For a few bucks a month, you're not going to give it up.
I mean, look what the internet has changed a lot of things.
Everything, yeah.
I mean, you remember we had the video rental stores.
Blockbusters,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that was a good business at one time. Yeah.
I mean, but the internet put that to bed because of the fact that you can go to Netflix.
Let's look at this, Harry. Some of the one of the biggest retailers in the world is online.
Amazon.
One of the biggest transportation companies, Uber. They
Yeah.
don't own any cars, buses, or anything, right?
I know.
Amazon doesn't own any storefronts. Airbnb, they don't own any real estate, any hotels, but they're one of the largest, hospitality.
Yeah.
So the internet's been able to create this industry and these businesses that couldn't exist before.
Right.
And and even that part of it, because I think that the work from home, distance working, remote working is also going to change, because when we get through this, and a lot of businesses are going to say, wait a minute, our production has either stayed the same or maybe gone up. Because in the average work day, say an average 8-hour work day, every study that we've done on this, or has, not we, but has been done on this, you get less than actually 4 hours of work out of an 8-hour workday. So if you let people work remotely from home or their own office, if you get at least 4 hours of production out of them, you've already met what you're paying huge commercial space for in brick and mortar.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to see a change where a lot of companies are going to go, you know something? I think we can do more of this and cut our brick and mortar expense
Well, you
down.
think about it, if someone starts work at 8 o'clock in the morning, if they got to commute for an hour or 2 hours, they're going to leave their house by 7, maybe
exactly.
6 in the morning. Now they're tired, they get to work. They're actually tired when they start.
Yeah.
If they get up at 7 o'clock, get on their computer by 8,
Yep.
they're more refreshed.
Yeah. And it's just, it's a very, and the thing about this, and a matter of fact, a week or so, 2 weeks ago, I had a guest on the Joe Mangiacotti show, a woman named Deborah Drew. And she's a friend of mine, and she does some things with me where we've sat on the couple of the same charity boards and things like that. But she has an MBA, and her thesis was that, working from home. And this was a few years that she did the thesis, I think 2006. And her whole premise on that was that work from home or work remotely is a culture. It's not as simple as give an employee a laptop and tell them to go home and work.
Right.
It's a culture. It's a different, because you've got pros and cons. And as a guy, very little change for me during this, because I've had an office and studio in my house for years, and I have done an office space, and after about a year and a half, I closed it because I'd get up, I'd go there, and I'd still work at home. So
Yeah.
it was ridiculous. So I took a spare room and made it an office. So there is more to it than just that. There is a culture, and there are pros and cons, right? Because your home, and this is one of the things that Deb Drew told me, right? She said, look, you've got to have defined work hours and work clothes. This is interesting. She says you get up and change into your work clothes. It does a couple things. It helps you with the mindset. Also, it tells everybody in the house you're working,
Yes.
right? And don't get up and just go into the den in your sweats or pajamas. Get dressed, go to work. You're working. Even if you stop to have lunch with family, they realize you're dressed. You're still working. So there's the pros are there, right? No commute. You save a ton in gas. All that kind of stuff. The cons on that. You've got other people, you've got family there.
Well,
The people
yeah,
think they can interrupt you anytime.
Right. If you got if you got kids, it's kind of hard to keep them from interrupting.
You need a defined workspace, right?
Yes.
You got to have, not just that corner of the dining room table while I'm working. You need
really,
to have.
You need a separate room,
Yeah,
really.
you need to have an office, a room, and whatever that is. It could be an alcove upstairs in the corner. It
Yeah.
could be in the attic or the basement or out in the garage. It doesn't matter. It's got to be. I've got a bedroom that I've turned into an office and studio.
Right,
And
that's what
that's
I
all
did.
that's in there. We don't hang in there. When we're in there, it's a work thing.
Well,
Yeah.
mine is my man cave as well.
Yeah, man cave. Isn't that a show here?
We had a show
Yeah,
called
it's not a
Man
show.
Cave.
Yeah, man cave. That's great. Bring that back. I want to do that.
I'd like to see him come back. They did a great show.
Yeah, yeah. I love the concept of it. It's
Yeah,
great.
they-
So so people actually call.
Yeah.
So
We-
508-266-0990.
Yeah.
There you go. You should take a call.
But-
I was watching.
We don't get a lot of calls, and I ask people, "Oh, I watched the show." I said, well, "How come you didn't call?" Well, you were asking all the questions.
Right. And that happens in talk radio too. A lot of people, I got a guy calls usually every week. I said, geez, I haven't heard in a couple of weeks. He goes, yeah, you've had guests on. I listened to the show. And
Right.
that's the thing in radio. People think that a good show is defined by the number of phone calls. It's not. If you're not getting phone calls, that's usually a good thing because people are listening to the content of the
Yes.
show. But I was watching online, on demand. You had Tracy Levon in last week, and Tracy's been on. Matter of fact, her time running this time, she announced on the Joe Mangiacotti show.
Yes,
She was on-
I
she-
heard
she-
that.
She announced it on my show.
Yes.
And so this is her second shot at it.
Yep.
And I think she has a lot more momentum this time around.
The only problem, and this has been a problem for all the people running, except the incumbents,
The signatures.
signatures. And
Look, it's-
Kevin O'Connor finally got where you can sign electronically online.
That's huge.
Yes.
Because they didn't used to. I didn't even realize this, but they didn't. You had to be actual signatures. You
Yeah.
couldn't sign electronically. So that's a game changer. That will help a lot. Now, didn't they cut the number to a third of required?
Yes.
All right. So see, those two things are going to help. But everything
Actually,
in
it was
politics.
the court that did it.
It was the court order. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, because the legislator didn't give
Oh,
a damn.
they're not going
They're
to.
incumbents.
Look at the power of incumbency is great, and if you don't think it is, that you're not paying attention.
Right.
I mean, this, by the way, the Joe Mangiacotti show is really a political show.
But
I
you
mean,
know,
it's-
Kevin O'Connor was smart too. What he did, well, Tracy stopped at my house and gave me some nomination papers. Kevin sent them to my house.
now, who's Kevin O'Connor? I'm sorry.
He's from, oh God, I can't think of any town now. In the Boston area. He's running for the Senate
Okay.
against Markey.
Okay. Oh, okay. That
As a
guy. All right,
Republican.
got it. Yep.
But I'm on the Republican Town Committee, so he sent them to all the registered Republicans in the state, nomination papers. Well, I got my family to sign,
Hmm.
people in the neighborhood,
That's how you have to do it.
Yeah.
You got to network, and you got
and
to.
then I mailed them
yeah.
back to them.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with nomination papers, you can only sign one town or one city, whatever city or town is on those papers.
Right.
You can't go and get people from all over.
Because that form is turned over to the clerk of that
Right.
community.
But-
And I've collected. I ran for state senate in '92 for the
Oh.
21st state senate seat, and then I ran campaigns. And so when you collect signatures, you have to have 5, 6 sheets for this is this town, and you get where are you from? You sign this one.
Well, you're talking Senate seats, state Senate seats in Northbridge. We have 2 state senators.
You're divided.
We're divided.
So you got Michael Moore, I assume.
Michael Moore and Ryan Fatman.
Okay, sure. Now, Senator Mike Moore, great guy, and he actually is.
He's on your show once a month.
Well, it's actually kind of his show too, because we do the first Saturday of every month from
Yep.
7 to 8 on that Saturday. It's called Politically Speaking with Mike Moore. So Mike comes in, and him and I do a show first Saturday of every month on WCRN, also live streaming on TuneIn app, or go to Politically Speaking on Facebook. Anyway, the point is, once a month we do a. Mike
he wanted
Moore.
to come here and do this show once a month. Problem is, it's on a Thursday night, and a lot of times they're in session.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I can't change it. I've been doing Thursday nights now
Right.
for
Right.
umpteen years. And I really don't have the schedule either, because I have planning board on Tuesday, and American Legion on Tuesday, then I got my town talk show on Wednesday.
Right. Right.
And we have selectmen meeting on Monday.
Well, I'll actually because I do stream it when Mike's in, so maybe I'll talk to Mike Moore and Senator Moore and say let's beef that up and spread the word a little more.
Yeah.
You know, but we also do.
I schedule the 2 of you to come in together here.
Oh, that would be
That would
great.
be great, wouldn't it?
That way, you could actually bill it as Politically Speaking.
Yeah.
The host of Politically Speaking. So even though the show became 2 years, last year rather, it became the Joe Mangiacotti show, that Saturday, the first Saturday of the month, we still keep it as Politically Speaking with Senator Mike Moore. Yeah. So, and that's the whole thing. I've kind of fallen into a rhythm. Now, I do, as a matter of fact, this morning, I was on Making Money Last with Jerry Doherty.
Yeah.
Jerry does.
That was a great show today.
Thank you. Yeah. And so Jerry has been doing. He's in his 7th year of doing Make Money Last, and your money and politics are very connected.
Yes.
So Jerry has decided that he does Political Thursdays, and so I join him on Thursdays from 11 to noon on WCRN AM 830, and we do that hour. And even Holly Robichaud from the Herald and radio, she comes in for a few minutes.
Yeah.
And I love Thursdays. I look forward to it. I think Jerry does too. He has a great time.
Yep.
And so the second, I think it's, pretty much the second Saturday.
Now, Jerry started out 1 day a week,
Yep.
and now he's on 5 because it's been so successful.
It has been very successful for him. Yeah.
But then he goes on Sundays, he goes on with Peter Blute.
He goes on, right? He calls in, he does Peter Blute. And now he also started doing an hour on Sundays on AM 1200.
Oh.
Right, Boston's conservative station.
Yeah.
So he will record that at CRN and in that air. So you can hear Jerry Monday through Friday, hear him on Sunday, and then hear him on Peter Blute, and then the second Saturday of every month you can hear him on the Joe Mangiacotti show.
We talked about it at the stage, we should mention the fact too that you're actually on WACE,
AM 730 in
In
Western
Chicopee.
Part. Yeah. So.
and because that's also owned by the same people that own WCRN.
So I always say WCRN an affiliate.
Yeah.
And it's AM 730 WACE, and that's a 5,000 watt station. And so you've got this massive footprint of Worcester, Central Mass, Boston, Cape and Islands. Then you've got the augmented 5,000 watt station. So really the only dead zone for the show would be the northwest corner of the state.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's pretty, and of course, we're everywhere in the
Yeah, it's
world
only
on the tuner.
5,000 watts, but it's
No,
very
it's-
flat
yeah,
out there. And you pick up that station. I used to listen to WAC when I worked out in the Springfield area.
And the other thing is, and I don't know if listeners realize this, or every listener realizes this, but when you AM and FM signals, when you're on FM, you want height in line of sight.
Yes.
On an AM station, you want lower on the dial. It doesn't matter on FM. On AM, it does matter where you are on the dial because it's your hertz, right? So if you got 800 right to 1600, anything on the lower dial is better because your signal will go further. And so when you're up, say 1400 AM, you need a lot more power.
Yep.
So if you're at 5,000 watts at 680, that's like having, 5,000 watts at 680 was like 60,000 watts. You see what I'm saying? So I used to work that and then ran 1470 AM. We were a 5,000 watt radio station. But if you were at 600 AM on the dial, all you needed is about 600 watts to get the same footprint. So that's because of the power
Yep.
it takes to go more cycles higher up the dial. So when you're talking about AM, anything under 1000 AM, like 1030 BZ down, is better, right? Because you need more power when you're higher on the dial. So when you're at 730 AM at 5,000 watts, that's like having 20,000 watts at 1200 AM.
Yeah.
See, so it's a great, so that's only on AM. Doesn't matter where you are on the dial. FM, it's irrelevant.
Yeah, you mean, like CRN is at 830.
Which is a great place
Yeah,
on the dial.
because BZ is at 1030,
Yep.
and they're both 50,000 watts, but we're actually got a stronger signal.
Now there is a station in WBI. Well, it was WBIX. I don't know if they kept it. It was 1060 AM, and they have a 50,000 watt license. And that was the business station that Outward Joe went on to.
Yes.
But Alex Langer Broadcasting, sold that to the Catholic Church Network. So they're not even a commercial station anymore.
That's a big change in radio has taken place.
A lot.
When the FCC changed the rules, and you could own multiple stations, and now you got people like iHeart who own stations all over the country. They got a huge network.
They can own a lot, but they still can only control a certain percentage of the market. So sometimes when you see these...
Yeah, but now they came into Boston, they own BZ, they own RKO, and a couple of smaller stations in the Boston market, which I don't understand.
What,
and
do
then
they-
they own WTAG.
Yeah.
And-
No, I don't think they own. I think it's a network thing. I don't think they actually own the stations. I
okay.
think it's part of the iHeartRadio family. You see, I don't think they actually own the property.
Oh,
and all
okay.
that. It's a different thing. So you become, so you stream on iHeartRadio or you stream on TuneIn.
Yeah.
One or the other. Like CRN, we don't stream on iHeart, we stream on TuneIn.
We're on TuneIn,
So
yeah.
iHeart doesn't actually own those stations. But if you're a communications company and you have 10, 20, 30, 100 stations, and you buy another one, the FCC has to approve it, and
Right.
they look at your market share. You can't have even TV and radio station. You can't have a certain percentage of the market share. They'll say, we'll approve this, but you need to sell some of these stations.
Yeah,
Because
I
you
mean,
can't own, if there's 8 major stations in that market area, you can't own 6 of them.
Right,
You have too much control, too much influence.
but they really eased up on regulation.
Yeah.
When you think about Comcast owns a major network, NBC. They were able to shut down WHDH, Channel 7, was the NBC affiliate, and shut them down. Took it away from their affiliation
Yeah.
and made their own.
Yeah, that stuff should not. I don't agree with that stuff. I think that I look at. I am a free market guy.
Yeah.
A Lincoln Republican. A conservative, not a what people think is a Republican in D.C. today. That's on. But I think that the role of government is to regulate and make sure that it's an even, level playing field.
Right.
That's what should happen there. And if you've got a company that is owning so much of the market and so much power that they can take a major network off the scene here in a major market, that's just not right.
They've gone the opposite. Years ago, the FCC came in and said you couldn't own a newspaper and a radio station because a lot of the radio stations started from newspapers.
Yeah. Well, WTAG, Telegram and Gazette.
That's where you got the call net letters.
Absolutely. And they years ago they had they had the newspaper office,
We're in
and then
the
they had the
same building.
station, and then they had like a studio audience, and you could
Yeah.
go in and watch the shows.
Yeah.
But a lot of them, I worked in Nashua market, right, and I worked for WSMN, and we had the broadcaster. We had a weekly newspaper that was part of the station.
Yeah.
So I was a news director. My counterpart was the editor.
Well, they broke that up,
Yeah.
but now they're letting, cable companies shouldn't be buying broadcast outlets.
Yeah, the rules, it's because you've got, and this is what's happened in the industry, unfortunately, is you've got a concentration of power. You've got a small group of companies owning most. We've got like 8,600 radio stations in the country, and there's just a few companies that own the majority of them.
Yeah.
In the day of that 1,000 watt, now that 1,000 watt station that I started in, at that time, it supported people. Right, you had salespeople and news people and stuff. Now
they're all gone.
They're gone.
It's all automated.
It's automated, or you've got one guy or two people running an entire station. You know, I've known guys that have owned. They have a computer at home. They've got a computer at the tower. You know, out in the middle of a field somewhere. And they just go around town, the little local stations, and he sells, and he runs everything off the bird. And that means he runs his programming off the satellite, and then he injects the local programming, and that's it. You know, it's crazy. Yeah.
It is crazy. I mean, and the world is changing. And now you're going to get into internet radio.
Oh, that's a huge already.
Yeah.
And we are kind of on. I mean, because we stream, right?
Right.
So CRN is an internet radio station.
Right.
Plus, all of us individual shows have our podcasts.
But what I mean by you're allowing, without a license.
Oh, yeah, I see. Yeah.
You can start your own radio station broadcasting on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how much business you're going to get? Well, that's another question, because you got to build an audience. And
yeah, but that's a whole nother revenue source, right?
Yeah.
When you've got a YouTube channel or something, and you start in websites, now you can sell space on your website, or you can get money per click from YouTube and things of that nature. But see, the FCC only deals with the airwaves.
yeah,
Internet came along and nobody regulated. That's why every time they start talking about regulating the internet, everybody gets a little nervous, because the last thing we need is big government getting in, sticking their hands into internet.
it wouldn't be what it
screwing
is
that
if the government
No.
had got involved in regulating.
The reason that the internet is as successful as it is because the government hasn't been involved with it for
Right.
the most part. Yeah.
But-
And now, we haven't gotten into really any politics. I didn't know we were going to go tonight, Harry. I didn't know if
Yeah.
we were just doing general talk or we were going to get into politics.
I'd
but-
like to get into politics,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
tonight I figured we'd just
Just do this, but
Talk about-
and of course you can join the show every Saturday and Sunday morning.
Right.
My social media is Joe Mangi. I thought it was easier than telling people to spell Mangiacotti. Mangi. JoeMangiShow.com. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Joe Mangi Show, and follow us. Go to Facebook. You can watch us live stream on Saturday and Sunday mornings. You can see Senator Mike Moore, Jerry Doherty, when they all come into the station.
But Saturday morning is great to listen. I mean,
Yeah.
you get up, got to get up a little early, but what the heck?
Yeah, but I get up very early.
You
You
get up
just have
real
to
early.
turn your radio on, folks.
Yeah.
You don't have to get up and
You
get
can listen to
showered
it in
and get
bed.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And Peter Blue, 9 to 12 on Sundays, and he's Peter Blue. Him and I go back a long time, because when I had run for the 21st state Senate seat.
What
and,
towns are that?
That was Natick. Framingham was 50% of the district.
Okay.
Okay. Framingham, Natick, Ashland, Franklin, Medway, Hopkinton. All right. That was that whole thing. And so Framingham was 50% of the district. And this was the thing. It was 1991. And I'm a young guy. Now, the guy that held that seat, Senator Burke, he was 26 years old when he got elected, same age I was running. And he held the seat for 22 years. And so when I had announced I was running as a Republican, and a week later, the Boston Globe did a Sunday 5 paragraphs on me. And then within the week, he announces he's not going to seek re-election. So it became an open seat. And there were a 9-way Democratic primary. It was a crazy, crazy race. And I ended up losing to a guy named Dave Bignani.
We got to run, Joe, because the
Oh, my
computer's going to
goodness,
shut
look at
us
that.
off.
Here we go.
Thank you for coming in, Joe.
Thank
Not
you
gonna
for
shake
having
your
me.
hand.
No, we do just wave, yeah. Thank you.
Next week, we're going to have the brewery guys, okay, from Purgatory Brewery. I get it straight now.
Yeah.
But we're going to have Joe back. It was a good show.
Good. I look forward to it.
See you next week.